Today, we reject, I think it's between 70 and 80% of the activities we get. So when we say curation, it's a lot of curation.
So if you reject that many, what are some of the obvious things that lead you to reject an operator, things that could be helpful for operators to know when they're applying to list on Civitatis?
Welcome to Arival's Best Part of Travel podcast, where we take you inside the business of destination experiences. I'm Janelle Visser, and I'm here with Stephen Joyce.
Hi.
And today, we're going to be kicking off Season 3 with an in-depth conversation between Civitatis' new CEO, Andres Spitzer, and Arival's CEO and co-founder, Douglas Quinby. The conversation covers everything from Civitatis' approach to the tension between online travel agencies or OTAs and their operators, to what works with the Latin American, Portuguese, and Spanish-speaking market, to their approach to AI, not replacing humans, but giving humans superpowers. So, to kick things off, Stephen, if you could have one AI superpower, what would it be?
One AI superpower. I would say to do all the incredibly mundane parts of my job so that I can just focus on the fun stuff. Because ultimately, I just want to do the fun stuff, right? Like, I don't want AI to draw pictures and write poetry for me. I want it to do the mundane crap so I can draw pictures and write poetry. Not for work, clearly.
Okay. Okay. So you're becoming a poet?
Aren't we all a little bit poetic?
I mean,
maybe. I don't know. We should be more poetic. Yeah. How about you, Janelle?
I think for me, it's a clear winner for language. If I could get AI, if I could get an AI chip that would help me speak any language, like, you know, a universal translator, one might say, I think, especially in travel, that would be such a winner to be able to talk to anyone in any language. And I think that would just make everything amazing. I know AI has made it a little easier to learn languages, but you still have to learn them. If I could get AI to give me the superpower of language, I think that would be so cool.
Yeah. They've tried to make those sorts of things, but we're getting pretty close now with these
We're getting there.
Bits of technology. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, we're going to jump into this conversation with Andres. But first, a message from our podcast sponsor.
Protect Group offers a service called Refund Protect. The way it works is that an operator or reseller offers Refund Protect at the time of checkout for an extra fee, usually around 10% of the ticket price. If the guest can't go because of some unforeseen circumstance, they request a refund through Refund Protect, and they get 100% of their money back, including the fee. The best part is the operator keeps 100% of their revenue, and they make a little extra. So to find out more, go to protect.group/bestpartoftravel.
Okay, so great conversation to start the season with. I'm super excited to have Andres on the show. He's the new CEO of one of the leading OTAs in Europe. And with Douglas as a star interviewer, they hit on quite a few topics that are going to be really important in travel experiences this year. So excited for this conversation.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear what Andres says. And yeah, let's get on with it.
Let's get into it.
Hi, well, welcome to the Arival podcast. I am delighted to have Andres Spitzer, the newly appointed CEO of Civitatis. It was right before the Christmas break, right?
Yeah, it's been very recent. So thank you for having me. It's super nice being here with you, and I'm excited for the opportunity to talk on Arival.
I appreciate it. So let me ask you first, for those of you listening who are not as familiar with Civitatis as some of the other online travel agencies in the travel experiences sector, could you just give us a 15-second overview? What is Civitatis and what sets you apart from the Viators and Get Your Guide and the other platforms that are maybe a bit more well-known?
Sure, yeah. Well, we are Civitatis, and we are the leader of the Spanish and Portuguese travel markets. I think when we say we are leaders, I hope this is not a boast. We think it's a foundational fact. We don't think we are a niche player anymore. I know sometimes it's been said, okay, Civitatis were the small ones, which, while being true, is by design, right? We operate at big scale. We are operating today in 4,000 destinations, 160 countries. We search roughly 1.2 million people per month which we are very proud of. And you're asking about what is our difference, right? What is the Civitatis difference? I think it's the many global OTAs are what I like to think as open bazaars, right? They list everything. It's up to the customer to sort the good from the bad. They do the choice. And we like to think that we are different in that manner, right? We always talk about curation, right? And we think is one of the key things that makes us different because our curation is actually one of the design traits of our Civitatis way, right? And while other OTAs make customers make the choice, for example, let's say you're going to Colosseum or you want to see the Sixtine Chapel, right? And you go to another marketplace, you'll need to browse through hundreds of operators giving their service, operating their tour, and it's up to the customer to make the choice, which is good. They have a choice, but there's always the question of, is this the best experience? Is this the best way for me to discover this destination? Is this the best way for me to experience this attraction? And with us, we do all of the hard choices, right? So we curate. When you go to Colosseum and Civitatis, you will find 1, 2, or 3 different tours that are actually different. They're not the same.
Actually, I was checking earlier just to prepare for this, and so there are 37 listings on Civitatis for the Colosseum for like an undated search versus more than 1,000 for Viator.
Yeah, and for sure they are not exactly the same because we have sometimes, you want to see the Mount Palatino and the Colosseum, or you want to see the Sixtine Chapel and this. So some of them maybe they are just trying to bundle so you can have a full experience, but behind, right, is always going to be that high quality experience that is going to be providing the customer a good memory, which is what we pursue at the end.
So the curation topic is a really interesting and important one for our sector. So I definitely want to come back to that because it's such a unique challenge within experiences versus other parts of travel. But just before we do, your background is really interesting. So you came from Amazon. What did you do there?
Amazon, actually, I was leading the product and tech teams for Amazon Business. So Amazon is a huge animal. It's a big company, big tech stack. So I was on the e-commerce side, so the foundational Amazon, let's say. And I was leading the experience for Amazon Business, right? So while Amazon, do you know what Amazon Business is?
No, could you tell us? Yeah.
So Amazon Business is the service Amazon provides to companies to buy on Amazon, right? So when we're used to buy on Amazon as consumers, to buy things for a house, actually, I live in Menorca, so I use it quite a lot. And to enable businesses to buy on Amazon, Amazon created Amazon Business, which is a specific platform with a lot of business-oriented features to cater to specific business needs, from one-man-pop shop to big corporations like, I don't know, Meta or Microsoft that are doing the procurement on Amazon. So all of those features, all of that customer experience is what my teams were doing. So and my background is not only Amazon. I've been most of my life entrepreneur. So I've had a few companies, a few other startups, but then I end up on Amazon.
So you have a leading role in, well, as you said, I think a big animal in Amazon. Why come to Civitatis? Much smaller industry.
Well, that's why I was explaining that I've not been always on Amazon, right? I went to Amazon by choice because I wanted to understand and learn how the hell did they scale so much while remaining fast and delivering new products and keeping the pace and leading the industry. And that was very interesting for me. So that's why I choose to do that. But my background, as I was saying, is being entrepreneur most of my life, right? So I'm very used to having much more strategy, impact, connecting with the vision, the direction, which at Amazon you can do at a certain level, right? Even though I was leading a big team, it's always, when you're in a company which is 1.5 million people, right? You always have a limited impact scope, which is good because you're serving millions and millions of customers. But at the end, the kind of impact on the strategy of the company that I like to have, and I think I can be beneficial for in Amazon is good because it gives you the context, but it's limited, right? So I was missing that. I was missing that startup, scale up flavor that I've been most of my career, and that pace and that excitement. So, and then I met Alberto, which is the founder of Civitatis, and I thought, okay, this is a very interesting industry. I like the way you put it, Douglas, when you present in Valencia. I think you said the fun part of the travel.
The best part of travel.
So the best part of travel.
More than a tagline, but yeah.
But it stuck with me, and I agree with that. Being in this industry was very interesting for me.
So when you came over to Civitatis, you came over, I think, almost a year ago, and you came first as a chief product officer.
Yes.
Yeah. So what, coming from kind of Amazon, and your other experience as an entrepreneur, coming into this industry, is there something that you've learned that maybe struck you as especially interesting or different, or maybe something, I can't believe this is how it is in this industry after spending so many years at Amazon or in kind of other parts of tech and product?
I wouldn't say it surprised me, but I think one of the things I was not expecting was the level of fragmentation and the fact that I was thinking that, okay, coming from Amazon, as I was telling you, we served in Amazon Business, we served from mom and pop shop that are selling whatever, almost to the piece, to big corporations. And even on those businesses, the level of connectivity, being used to connecting with enterprise software, I will say, was higher in most of the countries, right? So when I landed Civitatis, I wasn't aware of the level of fragmentation of all of the product, right? Of the fact that we can have a super great tour operator, which is only operating with a mobile phone in Cancun because they are doing diving and they do the most amazing dive in Cancun, and you can go with them and have the experience of your life. They don't want to put technology in their life per se, right? They just want to go dive.
Yeah,
And so
a lot of these people, they don't get into the business because they want to hook their CMS up to an API, to a book, all of that stuff. That's not why they're doing it.
That's not what they're doing, which is the level of fragmentation and different profiles and the different actors that you have on the industry. Now that I understand it, is okay. I wasn't expecting that there were so many layers, so many different shapes of businesses in a way, right? And different ways of operating the business.
So how do you, because it is one of the things with Amazon that's extraordinary, how there was the original book, the author about the long tail was really inspired by Amazon and this idea of building this extraordinary business at scale by selling a little bit of everything. And that was this idea that emerged in e-commerce, I think now maybe two decades ago.
The everything store, right?
Yes, but there's the concept of the long tail that emerged as well with Amazon. Yeah. This is Web 2.0 days, way back, but yes, in the everything store. Is there a lesson or maybe a learning from those concepts, or maybe just operationally from Amazon that our industry could benefit from, or something maybe you're thinking about and trying to apply at Civitatis?
Yes and no. Maybe my answer will not go the direction you want. But I think when people hear I come from Amazon, right? I think they immediately think I'm going to talk about huge warehouses, logistics, insane scale. And yes, I've learned a lot on those things, and they are incredibly very valuable. But for me, the core insight that I brought to Civitatis is not about moving boxes and operations, which I can talk about it in a minute. I think it's more about customer obsession.
Boxes, about moving boxes, how exciting of time, let's go where it is.
I'm a geek, so moving boxes with robots is fun.
Okay. Okay, cool.
So, and yeah, there's a lot of technology in our warehouses. It was pretty fun. But I think the main thing is not that operational rigor, which I think there's a lot to learn in the process, and I'll go there in a minute. I think the main thing is about this customer obsession, right? And this was one of the things that surprised me when I joined Amazon, right? This was that actually they have these leadership principles, right? That are the values from the company, but actually you end up using them as tools, right? They become your daily tools. They shape how you operate, and everybody uses the same tools. So it has a very specific way of shaping the company's culture. I think it's the only company I've seen that keeps a very similar culture regardless how far you are from HQ.
Can you give me an example of a tool?
Yeah, for example, there's a leadership principle which is insist on high standards, right? Or frugality. And oftentimes the leadership principles at Amazon, they have a tension. They sometimes can be contradictory. Let me give you an example, right? So you're in a meeting and you need to deliver a feature, right? And you say, okay, you need to insist on high standards, right? But at the same time, you have another LP, the leadership principle, which is deliver results and deliver results fast, right? So to what level you need to balance these two to make sure that you can insist on high standards, but at the same time deliver results. And you start talking in a language that everybody in the room understand, because you're talking about these leadership principles. So yes, I'm insisting on high standards, so we are going to do these features and go the extra mile, because otherwise it's not going to be a lovable product. But at the same time, we need to ship it in June. So to what level these two and the tension, and this aligns the brain on all the people in the room because everybody's understanding what you mean by those things. And you have 14 of those. So frugality, there's a lot, right? So for me, the main one is this customer obsession, which is always walk backwards from the customer, deeply understand the customer problem, right? Which is something I've been doing all my life. This is not coming from Amazon era, but start from the customer, walk backwards, right? And then understand the problem and think on the solution, right? And that customer obsession and putting the customer always at the center has been a very valuable lesson. I think this is the main thing I'm trying to share with the teams here. There was this interesting chair that was in many meetings, especially when you are in meetings in Seattle, right? Which is the chair of the customer, that in many meeting rooms, you have an empty chair. I'm having a meeting, right? And you have an empty chair that represents that's the customer sitting there. And that's a powerful message because it makes you always think that you're doing that because of, and that value they're going to give is to someone. You're providing a solution to someone. At the end, when we think about impact, for me, impact comes from delivering value, right? You deliver value at the end, there's going to be a reward, there's going to be a benefit, but that value and that embodiment of customers at the center, I think is a very powerful lesson.
How do you balance the tension that exists in marketplaces where you're serving supply and you're serving your demand, right? You're serving your customers. And that's something that comes up quite a bit in our industry, that, that tension. As an OTA or reseller, I want absolute up to the minute, availability and cancellations with refunds and all of that. But if I'm the operator, and I'm running a food tour, I've already committed to my restaurants and my guide, and I've got to pay them regardless. So I need a little bit more. So how do you, I'm actually really curious about how you thought about that or kind of work through some of those issues at Amazon, but then how you're thinking about that as well for Civitatis.
I think you phrase it as a tension between both sides. I don't think that's a tension. I think if you phrase it on Amazon terms, right, this is a flywheel, right? At the end, when I think on the value Civitatis provides, at the end, we are a connector, we are an enabler, right? And we provide value to both sides. We provide value to the customer when we make sure that we can serve them the best way to discover a destination, the best product in an easy way, making sure that it's available, making sure that they have the best price, that they're going to be getting service if they have issues. And that's the value we provide for customers. At the same time, for operators, we make sure that we can help them reach customers they wouldn't reach otherwise. We are connecting them with the world. We allow Argentinian buyer to go get a tour in Barcelona, right, in an easy way, and they're going to be getting it on their language, and it's going to be cultural fit, and it's going to be doing that match. And for me, that's not a tension; it's a flywheel. The better we do one, the better we can do the other. So one is enabling the other. At the end, it's a virtuous cycle, right?
Circle, yeah.
Virtuous cycle. Makes it faster and faster, which is the Amazon. It's the same as the Amazon promise, by the way. Lower prices, more volume. It's a flywheel.
Well, I appreciate that characterization, and I get it, but I think at the same time, there is tension, right? And it emerges in our industry on a pretty regular basis, right? Every time one OTA wants to make a change in their terms and conditions, that may be very favorable for customers, but it can create, a difficulty for operators. So. So there is a tension there, and so there's still something, right, to navigate or to balance. And certainly a lot of the supply community feels the tension. So what does the industry or OTAs need to do then to...
Yeah, I agree. But I think that's why I was telling you that sometimes when we have less operators and we don't think as operators are more as partners, it's by design, right? Think that we are serving a very specific market, and that specific market we're serving is targeted for a reason. And the fact that we don't need to be the bazaar, an OTA, which is a bazaar, making more product. That's what we're looking for, right? We're looking to make sure that we can provide the best way of visiting the Sixtine Chapel, and you can have the best memory on the Sixtine Chapel. Do I need to have 50 suppliers for that? I don't need to have 50 suppliers. I want less suppliers, which for me are not going to be suppliers, are going to be partners. And Civitatis has grown over the years, mostly having sometimes even one partner that we select. We think that this is the best activity for this location. And when we've been adding more partners is because, as you know, and I think I heard you say this, that everybody wants to go the same places at the same time. And there's a lot of availability issues. And then you say, okay, how can we keep this Civitatis promise of having the best experience for discovering this destination while making sure it's available, because otherwise we can be quality rich and quantity poor, right? And we want to make sure that everybody that wants to go to Rome and they want to visit the Colosseum, as we were talking, they are able to, right? So there's locations where we are finding more operators that can become our partners long term, so we can drive them volume because we know that demand is there, right? It's not that we are adding like other operators just for having a huge catalog.
So how many operators do you work with?
It's 90,000 activities. So operator is going to be, let me give you a ballpark of 40,000.
Yeah. So how do you scale and curate? It seems like there's, very different approaches in the market, like as you alluded to, others that have a more kind of marketplace, or say a bazaar type of approach. How do you decide how many operators you need for a market or for a particular product?
There's two answers to that, right? One is on the places where we know we have product and we think, okay, there's a lot of demand here. We are not able to cover demand. We need more operators to help us cover these activities. And at the end, what we're looking for is long-term partners, right? So not just a supplier. And I don't know, this is probably something that everybody says, right? Because it sounds nice. But I think in our years of history, this has been very true. We have very close relations with our suppliers. So one of the things that we look is this long-term partnership. Second is that they're able to cater to this operational excellence and the cultural sensitivity that we want. Remember that we want to do. We're growing in Latin America, right? So one of the things that we are trying to build is that we are a local brand. We are a local brand in Spain, so we are Civitatis, Spanish brands in the Spanish market. That's something that we already do well. We want to do the same in Mexico, in Argentina, in Brazil, in Colombia. So we want to be the Colombian company. They're the Argentinian company, the Mexican company, the Brazilian. So having that connection with the cultural sensitivity of the operator so they can serve our customers is very important for us. So it's one of the distinctive ways of Civitatis where we have a very targeted language profile. And on the places where we are not adding partners because of the demand is because we are adding new destinations, right? We are thinking, okay, there's a new destination emerging. What we're looking is basically the same, but of course, that discovery is different, right? Because sometimes we need to understand better what is the product that we need to discover here. For example, yesterday I was talking with our supply team and we think, hey, we see that we have Argentinians now, they really want to go to Florianopolis, Brazil, right? Because the situation in Argentina, they are getting to that destination and we say, okay, do we have the product there? Do we have what we need? So when we are building the catalog, of course, that discovery is the same. We're looking for partners, etc., but we start from scratch. So first, we need to understand what is the connection between this demand and supply, right? I think adding things on the catalog that no one is buying is actually helping anybody. So we need to make sure that there's this connection with the demand and that we are going to be adding things that are relevant for customers, right? As you know, today we reject, I think it's between 70 and 80% of the activities we get. So when we say curation, it's a lot of curation.
Right. So that's a super important topic then for operators. So if you reject that many, what are some of the obvious things that lead you to reject an operator? Things that could be helpful for operators to know when they're applying to list on Civitatis?
Sometimes many of the things that we reject is because we don't think it's a good way of discovering a location. And we don't think it's something that is relevant or for getting to know that destination. So I think it's probably something that is different on Civitatis. If you go to Tokyo, right, and you have a operator which is offering you an amazing Spanish ham experience, right, because it's in Japan, they love ham, and there's something that is trendy for Japanese, and they have this Spanish ham shops and so on, and they receive, or even flamenco, right? Does it make sense for Civitatis to sell flamenco in Tokyo? Right.
Okay.
Are you going to learn about Tokyo by going to a flamenco show in No, we reject that because we don't think that's going to make your trip richer. And again, at the end, what we care about is that when you go visit a destination, we offer you, hey, this is what you need to see, right? These are the things that you need to see to make this a memorable experience. And of course, this is different depending on the type of traveler. We have a type of traveler is going to be looking for culture. Sometimes travelers are going to be looking for adventure, for fun. And for sure, we need to make sure that we cater for those different type of travelers, but always trying to have a connection that makes sense, right? If you go to Tokyo and I'm telling you, hey, the best thing you can do here is the flamenco show, I'm not being true to my Civitatis promise of curation, right? So that's one reason, making sure that it makes sense. Oftentimes also we reject because we already have that product, right? If you come to us and you tell us, hey, I'm going to give you another Colosseum tour, right? We already have a lot of curation for the Colosseum tour. I don't want more. Maybe at some point we'll add operators if the demand needs it. But otherwise, I don't need another Colosseum tour. I don't want to go to this. I think you said a few hundred on another platforms. We don't want to get there. That's an easy way of making your catalog bigger, but it's not going to be better for our buyers and neither for the operators at the end, because we are going to be diluting the demand as well. To close to your point on this tension that you were describing, I think making that isn't helping anyone.
Well, let me turn the question around and ask it: what makes a operator successful on Civitatis? Are there things that you specifically, look for or want to see when you're building your product catalogs, your curated catalogs, and
so living besides this cultural fit and what I just explained, I think operators that crush it in our platform excel at two things, right? One is operational excellence. I think that they are punctual, they're reliable, they have clear communication with the customer, they have that cultural sensitivity. I think they really go the extra mile to understand the nuances of Spanish, Portuguese, speaking traveler. This is easy on Spanish market, but when you try to do that in Tokyo, sometimes it's not that easy, right?
Yeah.
It's not really enough to translate text. We really want them to tailor the experience, right? If possible.
So Spanish, so tours, for example, run kind of natively in Spanish is a baseline requirement.
It's something we highly demand, yes.
Yeah.
It's not always possible that it's a native guy or woman from Salamanca doing the tour from whatever. But the fact that it's not going to be one of these tours where you go and you have the guide talking 3 languages on the same tour, we don't want that. We want our tours to be done in one language uniquely, at least on that session. It doesn't mean that the tour needs to be doing tours in Spanish only. Of course, we can have one session, 1 hour, one slot on one language, but we don't want to have this dual experience, right? In January, I went with my wife to Japan. I wasn't even working at Civitatis yet. I was visiting my team in Tokyo, actually, and we took a tour with a company there. I will not going to name the company. and we went to see Mount Fuji. And I booked a tour in Spanish. And it was super annoying to see that, and I can speak English, my wife can speak English, so I wouldn't mind having had a tour in English. It would have been fine for me. But I said, okay, I'm going to get a tour in Spanish. And we had a Chinese guide in Tokyo that was talking in Chinese, English, and trying to talk Spanish. It was impossible, completely impossible to understand her in Spanish. And for me, that I was catching the English part, it was okay, right? But if my mother was on that tour, she would have been completely lost. She wouldn't have not understood anything at all. And many of our customers can be like that. We have many customers that are afraid of traveling because of the language. Yesterday I was reading a report, and it was from Brazil Market Research, and it was explaining that there's 33 million of Brazilian people that have enough money to travel abroad, but they're scared to travel abroad because of the language. So that connection is important. Is very important for us. Sorry, I went too long on that one. But you were asking about what they need to crush it. One is this, right? And I think the second part is that, and this is something we're trying to build, and we're trying to be better on our side as well, right? Because we have many things to fix. Yeah, we're not perfect by far. I think it's the most successful, treat our partners as a feedback loop. And this is something that we're trying to build tools for that. So they look at our data, they see where they are succeeding, where they need to improve, and they are refining the service to meet the standards, right? At the end, one of the good things that we have, and I think it's been surprising, is the amount of feedback we have, right? Travelers give you a lot of feedback. Recently we crossed the milestone of 5 million reviews, right? And at the end, feedback is a gift, right? And I truly believe this. And on this feedback, and customers tell you, hey, is what has been good. Sometimes they don't tell you anything. They can just complain, or they can tell you it was amazing, which is good. Both are good feedback, but you cannot learn from that. But there are many which are very explicit, and sharing that intelligence and to this feedback loop, this virtuous cycle I was talking about, right, is something that we are building, and we're starting to work with some operators to see how this can improve the service, the experience, and hence is going to be impacting positively the sales as well. Customers operators that have that kind of relation with us, we see that are working very well. And again, I'm not saying that it's on their side, it's on ours as well. We need to help structure that information so it's useful.
I want to bring back though that kind of listening to this, I am thinking too of the example of the diving guide that you gave, I think in Mexico, who just does it on his cell phone. So how do you your principles of operational excellence and being, when I hear things about feedback loop, I'm thinking extranets and analytics and companies that are leaning into tech, whereas it sounds like the diver example is tech only because he has to, right? So how do you bring that kind of longer tail of those operators that they don't really want to spend a lot of time on the Civitatis extranet?
And I think that's a good question. I think it's one of the places where we need, and that's why I'm saying we need to do better on our side. We are looking to leverage AI, right? First, I think AI can help us to, one of the things that AI does well is structuring data, right? As we know, it takes unstructured data and structure it. So taking all of that feedback in a way that can be consumed is something that it does good. But some of the things that does well is putting that information in a structured way so it's very easily consumed by a human. So I think having that structured data then is a choice, right? You can either have that choice and that data in an API, you can serve the very technological operator that can receive those reviews. For example, the other day I was actually talking with an operator. They want to receive their reviews on an API endpoint. We are developing that for them. At the end, we have the data. So, okay, let's share it. This is going to make us both better. But at the same time, we can craft a report that this scuba diver is going to receive on the email with a summary, hey, what you could improve next week, what you could improve next tour, right? So it can be very humanly digestible. The source of the data is exactly the same. The way you deliver it to the operator can be completely different. I think AI can help us do that in scale. So there's not someone which is crafting an email to that person, and you can have that same level of insight. Well, at the end is what you want, right? In the way that you need to consume it.
What are some of the big opportunities for AI within our industry?
I think there are a lot. Yeah, and I think, of course, AI. I've been in tech for many years, right? So I think this business, it's not in the industry, but there's always been going at a breakneck speed, right? But I think AI, what we've been going through in the last couple of years is crazy. So the transformation we're suffering is very real, and I think it's going to be very good and very transformative for both how we operate our company, right? So I think on the efficiency part, on how we can, and I can give you many examples in a minute if you want, and also it's going to transform our product, right? I think so. It's going to transform how we work as a company and how we interact with our customers. When I want to talk about customers, it's travelers, it's operators, it's travel agencies, distribution networks that we cater to. I think AI is going to be shaping all of those interactions. There are a few ones which are clear opportunities. I think on the efficiency part, I think is what all the companies are doing, right? I think some of the ones I like on our industry specifically, especially on us, that we are thinking on language, on translation to connect to the local. I think the voice-to-voice technologies are going to transform many of the processes. For example, one of the challenges we have often is to make sure that we have customer support agents on every language for our customers, right? You need to speak Italian, you need to speak Portuguese, you need to speak Spanish, of course. And for some languages, sometimes it's not that easy to have so many people speaking on that language to cover the demand, right? And we care a lot about the level of support we give to our customers, the human to human, right? So having a human, so it's not a bot, that deeply knows our product, is able to talk to you, Douglas, and you're listening that human in English, is going to be talking in Spanish, and it's going to be a fluent conversation. I think that's going to be amazing. And it's going to allow us to be even operationally better because you don't need to divert support and depending on the language that the operator is talking. That's going to be a barrier that is gone. So I think that is amazing. And that's an example, I think that language translation example reflects in many processes.
The point you make about human to human is interesting. It seems like most of the hot topics or what's the buzz is about the human replacement component, whether it's replacing the customer service agent, it's replacing the content creator, maybe it's even replacing the tour guide. Is there going to be replacement that's going to take place?
We're not thinking on AI as replacing people. We're thinking on AI as a way to giving people superpowers, if I would like to say. So on us, I think every company is trying to make the customer service more efficient, and we have chatbots and we have bots answering. We try to make some of the processes, some of the automations, and I think we're still learning to see to what level, what processes are keeping the level of service that we want and being automated. And I think our processes that are okay to do that. Let me give you an example. I want to extend my booking for tomorrow, right? Is there a value that a human is doing that, or you want it done faster, right? Or you want it done now, right? We have some processes where we see there's more satisfaction from non-human interaction than from human interaction, right? For those processes, maybe we can find automations. But there are processes that the human connection is important, right? And trying to understand and having that reactivity. Today, when you call Civitatis and you're in a booking window, right? So when we call on destination, you're traveling to that Tokyo and you have a booking. When you call Civitatis, it's going to be a human attending you, right? Because we know you're in your trip. We know now you have an issue, and that's going to be a voice contact. It's not going to be a chat. It's not going to be a ticket. You can call by voice if you want, right? And then it's going to be a human attending you. To what level are going to be processes where we can keep that level of service and that level of being able to serve the customer with an AI? We'll see, right? At the end, for me, the minimum requirement is going to be that the customer satisfaction is not going down one bit. If we are able to do that better for the customer, let's do it. Otherwise, going back to the customer obsession, we want to make sure that we can cover the customer. And the problem is that there's so much buzz hype and now telling you, hey, you can be more profitable because here you can save. But to what cost? We'll need to understand what are the levels, right? And there's things that we have automated, right, and are working fine, and things that we are trying to say, oh, here we're putting a chatbot that is not working. Okay, we kill it. So promise that during this experimentation process, we need to make sure that we are able to not damage the service levels. So we are able to deliver that level of service that we want to while experimenting. But to your point of reducing people, we are not thinking on reducing people because of AI. We're thinking on, okay, what we could do more. We have so many things on the table that we want to do, and we don't do because we do something else. So what we're trying to do is, can we find ways of remove all of this work that can be automated, that can be done better by a process that is automated, so that person can be freed and do something that matters more, or is going to be having better value.
Do you see an opportunity there's a lot of discussion about kind of the potential for AI in discovery, in personalization, delivering that right product to the right customer. Yeah. Certainly there's more and more we're hearing and seeing, more demand is coming from chatbots, from LLMs, versus kind of traditional search. So there's a big shift that's happening there. Could you share a little bit of what you're seeing or how you see that? Where is that going?
So yeah, I think this is one of the ways that AI is going to transform the products, right? I think it's going to be mainly transformed in probably 3 ways, right? One is that we are trying to understand now is discovery, how discovery is going to be transformed through conversational experiences, through human interactions. And I think the way we search, the way we query the world is changing, right? Until now, we were used to do a Google search when it's saying, hey, what to do in Rome. Is that changing to, hey, I'm going to Rome with my wife and 3 kids. My kid is 11. She's scared of heights. So the level of context is different. It's really changing the way we query the world, because we've been, at least myself, right? I've grown in an age where I'm using to search in Google Rome activities minus theaters. I don't want theaters, right? So and from those ways of querying, now this is evolving to I can have a chat with my phone and explain them how I want to have the amazing trip for my family vacation and what I expect and what I want to feel. So that's very different. And for me, this makes 2 things: that this way of discovering and how we are going to be queried about the world is changing. At the same time, we're going to we were talking about personalization. And I like to think we're going to get to a new era of hyper personalization. When you try to personalize something today, right? What are the things that you go to a website today or an app that is going to know, okay, maybe they know your location, maybe they know what you purchased before, maybe they know that you went to some other place before. The more you have used the platform, maybe there's more. But I think there's going to be a new level of base expectation that the platform you're interacting knows everything about you, right? Because that's the level of personalization we are getting used to. So today, I don't know, do you use any LLM or any platform yourself?
Yeah, I use a few for
So-
everything.
So when you use, I use many as well,
Yeah.
but it's the ones that you use more, right? They have more conversations. Have
Mhm.
you done the experiment of asking the platform, hey, what do you know about me?
Huh. I haven't done that. I've heard people talk about that. I've thought about it. I think I'm actually a little scared to do that.
So it's scary. It's very scary and humbling.
Mm.
And you can do it in two ways, right? So you can ask, hey, what do you know about me? And it's going to give you an answer, high surface answer. And you're going to be amazed by the answer already, right? But when that's done, keep querying and ask it, okay, but now keep the bullshit, go to the detail level, give me a very deeply analytical answer of what do you think of me, how I am in my personal life, how am I in my professional life. So ask it to give you a very detailed answer on that. And your mind is going to be blown, right? And that level of knowledge is scary. And at the same time, it's going to be coming with a level of customer expectation of personalization, because we're going to be used that that's the minimum standard, right? That I have 3 kids, that I'm traveling on June, that I love to go to museums, and that I'm scared of heights, and that that I love Mexican food, right? So that level of standardization at some point is going to be, it is scary, but it's going to be table stakes, right? So how are we going to make sure that we can deliver that? So that transformation, besides the discovery, the query that we were talking about, that level of expectation of service, of knowledge of what you're looking for, I think is going to be.
Well, so now I've got to ask you, since it sounds like you've done this. So what's one thing that when you asked one of the platforms you use about yourself, what's one thing that it said that kind of freaked you out?
It freaked me out that it was telling me how I want to raise my kids. What are my values? What is important for me? What are things that I'm trying to instill in them, right? That are really your inner core of things, the things that you talk to yourself, that you don't express outside, right? But it was like it was myself telling me, no, this is what is important for you. And I was like, what the hell?
Did it get it right?
And it did it right. So that's what I'm saying. It was scary and humbling at the same time.
Did you learn something from it as well? Are you doing something different around how you raise your kids as a result?
I wouldn't say so. It was, for me, it was just a reflection of, oh, this thing knows a lot of things about me, deep things. But I wouldn't say that it changed anything, because if I was having those conversations, probably it's something I was already thinking on doing. But I don't recall having those specific things about my kids, by the way. But maybe you see, I talk a lot, so maybe I said something at some point that it was a nuance signal for something. But I wouldn't say it changed my behavior.
I could go on and ask about 30 more questions, but I think we got to wrap things up. I just one thing I have to ask. Forgive me for doing so, but I absolutely have to do it. So Klook filed its S1 last year. There's been some news about Get Your Guide looking at filing this year. There's other kind of rumblings in the industry. Anything you want to say about Civitatis before we let you go?
No, I think, Klook, they were going to do it last year. Now I think they delayed a little bit, I think, to see how the market is moving, right? But I think overall, those movements are good for the industry, right? I think the fact that we have potentially our IPO on the industry, I think it's a signal that the industry is moving forward, and I think it's beneficial for all of us. I think in our side,
do you think it'll happen, given the market, and do you think these will happen this year?
I think Klook IPOs will happen. I'm not sure about the other. Klook, I think it will happen. It will happen this year. I think in our side, our position is strong, right? I think we have Vitruvian's support, and they have a majority stake on the company. So
That's a big investment firm, right? It's
a big investment firm. It's easy, because we only have one.
And they're also invested in Klook as well, right?
They have a stake at Klook, not like us, because they have majority stake on our company, not in Klook. And the good thing is that we have the backing to continue to scale aggressively. But I think our DNA is a little bit different, right? Because we are very proud of scaling while remaining profitable. We don't need to chase growth at all costs. I think one of the things I loved of what Alberto did during these years is that he's been able to start a company that has been profitable from day one. So balancing this operational efficiency with making sure that you can serve the customer, so you're growing, right?
And which is exceptional. I mean, I haven't heard of that among platforms and the industry.
That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. We are a little bit rare in that regard because, again, we are profitable from day one. We don't have adjusted EBITDA or anything like that. We are profitable, and we are having the financial discipline that puts us in a privileged position. I think we continue to grow. Our growth strategy continues to be focused on Latin America, where we consistently grow more than 30% every year. And that's something that we want to keep doing. We'll keep doing in 2026, where we are going to be working a lot to, as I was saying, make sure that we can be local in Mexico, local in Brazil, local in Colombia, local in Argentina, make sure that continues to drive our growth. And we are not looking to a future where we are the biggest marketplace, and we want to be the most trusted. And I think this probably has been something I've repeated a lot, that we can have this high quality experience and not growing at all costs. And I think we are in a privileged position. We have a profitable company, continue growing every year. We have a easy cap table in a way. It's only Vitruvian behind us, so it's good. And we are thinking on this winning on the long term, the long game, which is something that also Amazon did very well. Amazon did very well the long term game, and I think it pays off.
Well, Andres, thank you so much for taking the time. Yeah, super interesting. We'll certainly be watching and seeing what comes next.
Yeah, thank you. As I said, thank you for having me, and I hope to see you in Valencia.
Well, I'll be there for sure. So we'll see you then.
Okay,
So
Janelle. Yes.
I'm flipping the script here because you always ask me what I think after the interview. I'm asking you what you think now.
It's true.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I actually listened in on this interview as it was happening because I hosted the interview for Douglas and Andres in our podcast studio. So I was kind of like a silent listener the first time around, and it was interesting to go back and listen to it again to prepare for this conversation because there's so many good things in there. One of the things that really stood out to me is how they have this focus on quality over quantity. And he talked about how many activities they actually reject. So, more than half, 70 to 80%, I think is what he said. And it's such a different approach from some other of the large OTAs that kind of just take everything, or seem to take everything. Douglas has said in the past how many 500, 1,000 tours of the Colosseum you can find on Get Your Guide or Viator. And Civitatis has a different approach where they're like, oh, we don't need that many, but we want to pick and choose which ones are the most fitting for our audience, and they have a very clear idea of who their customers are. So yeah, I thought that shift to having that quality focus was interesting. Yeah. And then he talks about, of course, who is their customer. They're really focused on the Spanish and Portuguese-speaking traveler. And it's not just about language, but it's also about culture. And so he talks about cultural sensitivity and how that's important to have on tours. We spoke at the beginning about how great it would be to have an AI language translator, but that wouldn't solve all of your problems when you're traveling. You need to learn about the cultures and have an understanding of not just the words people say, but how they use them and how the meaning is imbued within the culture that they're in. And so I thought that was really insightful on his part. Yeah, but there's lots though, so I don't want to steal all of them. What about you?
Yeah, I was going to say there were 3 key points for me that came up in that discussion. One, you already covered the difference between the curated approach, which Civitatis has taken, and what Andres described as the open bazaar, right? So didn't use the term marketplace, used the term open bazaar, which I kind of like.
It gives you a feeling of like a little bit
like
of
an open
chaos,
air. Yeah, exactly. Like
chaos.
An open air, like those markets that we've been to in Thailand or wherever, where it's just like little stalls all selling a mishmash of everything. But part of the fun of the open bazaar is the exploration. But of course, if you went to an open bazaar where it was like 5,000 stalls all selling the same thing, it would be pretty boring.
Right.
So I kind of see his point on that. The second one was the customer obsession as well, like the focus on customer obsession, which you also touched on with the cultural sensitivity and offering offering a tour in the customer's native language, like just the customers, rather than trying to service multiple different languages in the same tour. But then he also touched on something else, which was the idea of the flywheel, right? So as he mentioned, he comes from Amazon. That was his last position, was as head of Amazon business. And it's interesting that he comes from that very intense e-commerce background and applying a concept like the flywheel to something like tours and activities. It's been tried, and with tangible goods, it's a little bit more doable because those are things that you buy every day. But the challenge with the flywheel in tours and activities and in travel in general is that it's an infrequent purchase, right?
Right.
So it's a little bit like you can't get your recurring shampoo purchase or your recurring peanut butter purchase that comes every month.
Is that what
with
you
something
order?
like,
You have
no,
peanut butter
but that's,
coming monthly?
it's not, but I do have a friend that gets peanut butter. It's a special organic peanut butter that you can only get apparently that they can only find on Amazon and they get it delivered once a month. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But that doesn't happen with tours and activities. You're not ordering
Right.
tours and activities on a recurring basis. So the flywheel concept is a little bit more difficult to actually put into practice in this context than something like tangible goods. So something coming from an Amazon background. So I think we'll see how well that can be executed in this context, because all of the OTAs and tours and activities have tried to do that, and it's not easy. It's not easy to do. And then I think the third one for me was the transformation through AI and personalization. So using, as we mentioned in the beginning, like using AI as a superpower to enable team members to do their jobs more efficiently as opposed to replacing people. I really like that approach. That's something I want to see more of. When companies talk about AI, they often talk about replacing people with AI. And I'm not a big fan of that. I think the idea of eliminating, that's partly why I said I want AI to do the boring stuff for me, right? Have AI do the mundane work so that you can be more efficient for your customers, so that you can deliver more value for your customer. That is a great use of AI. And so I love that he's focused on that. And then also the hyper personalization aspect of it. So the ability to do better search, to deliver better results to someone that is looking for something based on who they are and what kind of travel they're doing at the time. So those were my kind of big three takeaways.
Yeah, and going back to what you said about the flywheel, I thought it was interesting that he was positioning that as kind of the antithesis to the tension, because Douglas asked him about the tension between OTAs and operators. And, this is something that always comes up at Arival is operators need OTAs to help them get customers, but they're frustrated with a number of things that OTAs do. And so his approach was, well, we're kind of going to skirt around that tension and try this flywheel thing. And so, I thought that was an interesting way of addressing that question.
Yeah, he talked about the implementation of that being, we're not going to take all of the product. We're going to we're still going to curate, and we're going to maximize the benefit for the operators that we do work with. And we'll only add availability. We'll only add a new tour if the demand requires it. If we have more demand than we're selling out all of our existing inventory, then we'll add more operators to the mix and increase availability. Which
so you're not just sitting there. You're not going to be sitting there with an empty shop in the bazaar, because the bazaar is going to be near capacity. So there's always going to be people buying your tours when it has that curated approach.
Yeah.
In theory.
Yeah. And there's not a 1,000 shops selling the same thing as you.
Yeah.
So you're having to compete on price. I think that's the other interesting aspect to this, is that when you curate and when you reduce the number of vendors selling the same product, you also reduce the price pressure, right? People aren't looking for the lowest common denominator price anymore. They're looking at what differentiates each of these experiences, what makes them different. And I think that's an important part of this as well. So,
and in this age where people are really looking for things that match with them, it makes sense to be focused on that, because he talked about discovery, and discovery is going to be transformed through conversational experiences. And so rather than searching for things to do in Budapest, people are learning to talk to the search engine or the AI agent and say, hey, I want to go on a trip with my family. They're this age, and these are the things we're interested in. What should we do? And so it becomes a lot more personalized and conversational and back and forth. And maybe the AI or the search engine suggests something, and then they say, well, actually, we're not really into that. We want to make sure that there's food involved or whatever. It becomes a lot more conversational, and that leads to the personalization as well. And if that's the direction that we're going, it makes sense that Civitatis is positioning themselves in that space where it is more curated and it is more focused on niche experiences and things that fit for different people. Yeah. So they covered a lot of great topics that I think are going to be really relevant for people this year and for operators this year and for our industry this year. And so I think I like starting the season off with this really nice in-depth conversation. And as we go into season 3, one of the things, you and I have talked about focusing on is more in-depth conversations with people, where we get behind who they are and inside their business perspective and go a little deeper with people. On the topic of, human interaction versus AI, people are holding so much knowledge and wisdom, and getting to the heart of things is one of the things that we can do with this podcast format. So I'm excited to do that with more folks this season. Yeah.
Yeah. And this conversation, for example, is very timely because it coincides also with the release of the Global Operator Landscape Report that just came out, that showed that OTAs have made a jump in terms of their impact on revenues for operators, right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing more sales go through OTAs. And I think AI and AI search has had an impact in that the OTAs are the source right now, because they hold so much inventory. They are the source for a lot of the content that is being delivered through these AI chatbots. And so we have to think about that. We have to think about the impact that has. And is that the direction that we want the industry to go? Because every time something new like this happens, for example, Google's activity listings that they had, the experience listings and stuff, those were initially, they were all driven by OTAs. And then they opened up to supply systems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we have to look at these things and the changes that we see in context, and we need to make sure that we're being thoughtful in our approaches when we look at how operators mix their sales and who they choose to work with.
Yeah.
Interesting conversations.
Interesting conversations with humans, by humans. Just to be clear, we are not AI.
We are not AI.
How do we even prove that now? I don't know. I digress.
Hard. I don't think we can.
Okay.
Anyway, I think that brings us to the end of this episode. Thank you for joining us. And if you like this episode, please share it with your friends, with your colleagues. We'd really appreciate that. To find out more information about upcoming Arival events in Valencia and Spokane and Australia. Yeah. Check out all of those events and the new reports that are available out at Arival.Travel. Thanks very much. Thank you, Janelle.
Thanks, Stephen.
And we'll see you next time on The Best Part of Travel.